Hello everyone, it's Alan Shimel, DevOps.com, DevOpsTV, and we're here in Nice, France for DevOps World, Jenkins World. Right on the show floor in our broadcast booth, and we're joined by Etienne Studer, VP of Engineering, Gradle. Close?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, not bad. And as the day goes on, it's harder for me, Etienne.
Can imagine.
Etienne, as I mentioned to you off camera, most of our audience is familiar with Gradle, but for some people maybe not. Why don't we just give a quick kind of Gradle background?
So Gradle is a build tool, and it's a very richly modeled build tool, meaning we can make very smart decisions and provide very sophisticated features because we know a lot about what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So we have, and some of these things we do is like you can have a composition of builds, we can work with that. We can have caching, local caching, remote caching, because we know what goes into a task and what comes out of a task in a generic way. And we have many features like that that really allow you to have a very fast build ultimately, and a very maintainable build.
So we're here at DevOps World, Jenkins World, Etienne. Talk to me about, how does Gradle fit in with Jenkins?
Well, with Gradle you can define your build and your whole build logic throughout the entire process of your build or your software, going from building it to deploying it. You can integrate that with Jenkins or any other CI server to let it do the work. Right? So when you use Gradle, the build logic is in Gradle versus it being mapped in the CI tool itself. Right? Meaning you have the same build running locally as you run on CI.
Got it. Is this your first Jenkins World for you or no?
For me, it's the first person. Yeah.
And I know it's only been one day so far. What impressions of the crowd?
I have a good impression. Of course, I'm a bit biased towards Gradle while being here, but compared to other conferences, also from past conferences, I see a lot of knowledge about Gradle. It's a very high baseline.
Yeah.
People use it. Some even have used Gradle Enterprise already. So the kind of questions and interactions are very, very thorough.
Sophisticated. Not that level one stuff. Yes. And that's why I said in the beginning, most of our audience is already familiar with Gradle.
Yes.
Here's an interesting thing, and it may not be yours. I realize you're a VP of Engineering, but you mentioned Gradle Enterprise, right? And when we look, so much of the DevOps tool set are based on open source tools. Jenkins is one of them, right? I think one of the challenges we see, and it's not a Gradle per se, it's not even a Jenkins CloudBees per se, but when so much of the tool set is based on open source tools, technology, and we have commercially funded companies that are supporting these open source tool sets under the premise that we are going to somehow monetize that user base. Whether it be an enterprise version, maybe just service and support, or what have you. How, this isn't a cottage industry anymore. This is it's a big market. How do you continue to make the open source tool viable, competitive, really useful, while continuing to make your enterprise, in your case, enterprise tool set worth the money? Tough question.
Yes, it is. So I would say the way we approach it is that the open source version of Gradle gives you all the features, nothing you pay for. And when you get Gradle Enterprise, we just allow you to get even more benefits, especially in large enterprise teams, where having those performance boosts, they just multiply in a way that amounts to a lot of dollars. So, and the costs are then justified by the gains you get. And so far we're finding a good balance between, also in terms of team size, between further developing the product, the commercial side of things, as well as keeping Gradle as a build tool relevant. Like if it loses its relevance, then the product built on top
Well,
of it loses
that's
its relevance
exactly,
as well.
it's like balancing on a needle, right?
Yes.
On a pinhead.
Yeah.
Because certainly the commercial product is built upon the shoulders of the open source. If the open source product is not viable or not competitive, you lose that entire base of that you're building your commercial product on.
Yes.
So you can't kill the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Yep.
Right?
That's true. But if you look at how much we invest, we have almost 20 developers working on the open source side
lot.
of things. And we have almost the same amount working on Gradle
So about
Enterprise.
50-50.
Yeah, maybe a bit
That's
more, maybe
interesting.
60-40 to the open source. So that still shows the investment in the open source is huge. And we can only do this, we can only put so many people on it because we have a commercial part as well. Otherwise we
Absolutely.
couldn't.
And that's another thing, and I've been involved in open source for 25 plus years, right? So many people have this notion of an army of elves worldwide who are contributing to all these open source projects. The fact of the matter is when you look at the contributor roster for any open source project, not Gradle or anything in particular, it's a relatively small amount of people. And then, 90+% of the people contribute nothing.
Yep.
Some percentage will be beta testers or report bugs or stuff
Yes.
like that. But really, I forgot the metric that I saw, but it's something like in most open source projects, 99% of the code is contributed by less than 12 people.
Yep.
Right? And that's just the facts. Right? That's the way it is.
But it's also really hard today if you just want to go into a project that is so complex, it's 7 years old, it's still maintainable code and all that, but to make a significant contribution beyond just
stuff.
stuff, it's really hard. So people just provide PRs on documentation
And that's
so on, which is great.
valuable,
Yes, very
right? No
valuable.
one says it's not
Yes.
valuable.
But to
right?
be innovative as an external contributor is hard, I think, in any open source project.
Agreed. So for our people looking out or watching this on YouTube or whatever, give us what you think are, let's say, the 3 biggest reasons why a Gradle user should consider Gradle Enterprise.
You should use Gradle Enterprise if you want to improve the performance of your builds, which means higher developer productivity. You get faster feedback from your CI builds, you get faster local builds, meaning you spend less time waiting and you can push changes to production faster. So the performance gain is one aspect. Second aspect is you can make your builds more reliable. Because without Gradle Enterprise, it's really hard to understand what happens while I run a build. But with Gradle Enterprise, we surface all these insights, and once you understand what's going on, you can also understand when something goes wrong. Right? And you need to understand what's going wrong in order to not make the mistake in the future or to fix something. Right? And the third point is just simply debugging what's happening in my build as well. These are the 3 points: performance, reliability, and simplifying how to debug a build.
Those are powerful points. Etienne, thank you for being our guest.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me here.
My pleasure. This is Alan Shimel, DevOps.com, DevOpsTV, here in Nice, France at DevOps World, Jenkins World. Have a great day, everyone.